Before we get to the story, take a second to give this video a like and subscribe. Your contribution to the development of the channel is invaluable. Thank you. I wake to the soft hum of early morning in my sleek Chicago apartment, the city already stirring beneath my panoramic windows. The skyline, punctuated by soaring buildings and winding streets, offers a daily reminder of a life lived at the edge of something vast and restless. As sunlight spills over my neatly made bed, I linger in those quiet moments before the day takes over. A rare pause where the mundane transforms into something unexpectedly profound. Every morning, without fail, I start with a quick workout, followed by a flurry of emails that blend into an indistinguishable stream of routine. Today, however, each familiar step feels slightly off-key. The repetitive motions, once comforting, now seem to whisper of lost opportunities and unspoken desires. There's an undeniable stir inside me, a yearning for change that has been quietly growing, demanding recognition like a soft call in the back of my mind. Later on the subway, as the city's pulse quickens with the collective energy of commuters, I catch a glimpse of something unexpected. Amid the usual blur of tired faces and hurried expressions, one stranger's gaze locks with mine. There's a depth there, a silent intensity that hints at stories of dreams deferred and passions unfulfilled. That penetrating look jolts me awake in a way I haven't felt in years, a subtle reminder of the aspirations I once cradled so dearly. Climbing the narrow staircase of our building, I nearly collide with Laura, my ever-energetic neighbor. Her smile is a burst of warmth in the cool morning air. "You ever think," she begins, her tone laced with both mischief and sincerity, "that sometimes it's the smallest moments that set off the biggest changes?" In that instant, her words, simple yet profound, resonate deep within me, echoing like a familiar melody that I can't shake off. It's as if she's holding up a mirror to my own hidden restlessness, challenging me to see beyond the confines of routine. Standing there in the fading quiet of dawn, I feel the weight of my daily habits slowly lifting. The city outside is alive with possibilities, a tapestry of fleeting moments and quiet revolutions. In that reflective pause, I realize that my life, once a series of predictable steps, is now on the brink of transformation. Today, I am not merely a spectator to the urban rush. I am a participant in its unfolding story, ready to confront the unknown with a brave heart and a spark of hope that refuses to be dimmed. I'm sitting at my cluttered desk at work, the hum of the office blending with the constant clatter of keyboards and murmured phone conversations. My computer screen is awash with articles and looming deadlines. Another day in a world where time feels both relentlessly fast and painfully sluggish. Amid this routine chaos, my phone vibrates unexpectedly, breaking the monotonous rhythm of my workday. I glance down, half expecting another notification from an automated system. Instead, a simple SMS pops up from a name I haven't seen in years. Dylan. His message is brief yet loaded with the unspoken weight of shared memories. "Hey, it's been ages. How about catching up soon? I've got some stories to tell." It's a casual invitation, but those words trigger a cascade of recollections, of college days filled with idealistic dreams, of long conversations under starlit skies, and of the unyielding passion we once shared for a life unbound by routine. A rush of conflicting emotions surges through me. Nostalgia tugs at my heart, and doubts begin to surface. Was it really time to break away from the well-worn paths I've been treading all these years? The text carries an undercurrent of something more, a hint that perhaps the life I'm living isn't the only option out there. That evening, after the workday has dwindled into a tired night, I meet up with Mark at a dimly lit bar down the block. The clink of glasses and soft jazz in the background set an atmosphere that feels both intimate and unguarded. Mark, always the candid one, wastes no time getting to the point. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" he asks, his tone a mix of concern and curiosity. "Maybe it's time to stop following a script that's been written for us by other people." His words, unfiltered and raw, resonate deep within me, igniting a spark of defiance against the humdrum existence I've so meticulously built. We sit in a quiet corner, the conversation spiraling into unexpected territories, of lost dreams, unfulfilled promises, and the pressing need for change. Mark's insights are punctuated by the clamor of the bar, yet every word feels tailored just for me. There's a new energy in his voice, an optimism I haven't heard in ages. His suggestion, rather than feeling like reckless abandon, comes across as a gentle prod, a reminder that life in its unpredictable nature might still hold surprises for those brave enough to chase them. In that moment, as I replay Dylan's text in my mind, I sense that this is the tipping point. The routine, the endless cycle of work and obligation, now seems like a distant memory compared to the possibility of reclaiming a lost part of myself. The conversation with Mark doesn't provide all the answers, but it plants a seed of courage. I realize that sometimes the unexpected call from the past isn't just a reminder of who you once were. It's an invitation to become who you might yet be. That evening, I decide to break away from the routine and head to a small, atmospheric art center in West Loop. A hidden gem known for its raw, unfiltered energy. The gallery, tucked away on a narrow side street, welcomes me with its dim, warm lighting and the soft murmur of visitors absorbed in each piece. As I step inside, the scent of oil paint and aged wood mingles with a quiet intensity that feels almost palpable, setting the stage for an encounter I hadn't anticipated. Moving slowly from one exhibit to the next, I find solace in the bold, expressive canvases that seem to capture the city's restless spirit. In one secluded corner, my eyes catch a figure standing before a particularly evocative painting. A portrait that mirrors the complex layers of human emotion. It's Dylan. But he isn't the Dylan of our college days. The man before me is transformed. His eyes, once filled with youthful idealism, now hold a confident sincerity, tempered by the traces of past mistakes. There's an unspoken gravity in his posture, as if he's carrying both the weight of regret and the hope of redemption. Our eyes meet, and for a moment, time seems to suspend. I offer a tentative smile, unsure whether to bridge the gap between our shared past and the unknown present. "I never expected to see you here," I say quietly, the words floating between us like a fragile invitation. Dylan's response is measured, his voice low and reflective. Art has a way of revealing the parts of us we try to hide. Our conversation unfolds organically. We move through the gallery together, pausing before each piece, and as the dialogue deepens, so does the connection. Dylan speaks of his journey, of missteps made in the name of chasing dreams, of the raw lessons learned in the shadows of regret, and of the unexpected moments that reshaped his path. I share my own unspoken struggles, the quiet discontent that has been building beneath my polished exterior. There's no need for dramatics or grand declarations. Our words are honest, unguarded, and filled with a palpable intensity that neither of us can ignore. In a quiet alcove away from the soft hum of other patrons, the space between us shrinks until it's charged with unsaid emotions. The soft glow of the gallery lights turns everything almost surreal. Without warning, as if driven by an impulse that has been waiting far too long, we lean in. Our lips meet in a kiss that's both gentle and searing. A moment of pure, unfiltered passion that feels like reclaiming a lost piece of ourselves. In that instant, the kiss becomes more than a meeting of lips. It's a silent promise that the dormant desires within us have been awakened, a spark that could ignite a cascade of changes. As the night deepens and the gallery slowly empties, I step back into the cool Chicago air with a mind ablaze. The encounter with Dylan wasn't just a fleeting moment of nostalgia. It was a visceral reminder that life's most meaningful transformations often begin with a single, unexpected moment of truth. After an emotionally charged evening with Dylan, I step into the familiar surroundings of our suburban home, only to be met with an atmosphere as cold and distant as an overcast winter morning. The warm glow of my apartment feels dimmed by an invisible frost. As I cross the threshold, I notice that everything seems unchanged on the surface. The living room arranged neatly, the muted hum of the television in the background, and the faint aroma of dinner waiting to be reheated. But underneath, the air is thick with tension. James, my husband, is ensconced in his study, his focus fixated on the relentless clatter of work on his computer. The room is cluttered with papers and digital screens, a fortress of order that now seems to imprison him rather than comfort him. Across the hall, Ethan sits glued to his video game console, his laughter and enthusiasm muffled by the weight of unspoken discord that hangs over our household. The silence that greets me is anything but welcoming. I can sense the shift. James has noticed the change in me. It isn't just that I'm quieter, or that my eyes now flicker with something unexpected. There's a spark inside me that wasn't there before, a yearning that has awakened with the memories of Dylan's unexpected presence. I know that spark has unsettled him. Without preamble, James's voice cuts through the silence. "Emily, what's going on with you?" he asks, his tone as cool as the unyielding glare in his eyes. There's no anger in his words, just a crisp, almost clinical dissection of my recent behavior. "You seem distant, distracted, like you're not really here." I pause, setting my bag down with more force than I intended, the sound echoing in the heavy quiet. "What do you mean?" I counter, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm just trying to figure things out. I'm tired of living on autopilot. My words feel raw, as if every syllable is a piece of the truth I've been suppressing. A bitter laugh escapes James. Figure things out? He repeats, his sarcasm laced with a sting that cuts deeper than any insult. Since when does chasing some vague notion of figuring things out seem more important than the life we built? His eyes narrow, and for a moment, I see the fear of losing everything we've known reflected there. The conversation escalates quickly. Each exchange is a volley of barbed remarks, a clash between my newly awakened desire for authenticity and his desperate need to cling to the familiar. His words are sharp, laden with criticism, while mine tremble with the uncertainty of stepping into uncharted territory. I try to explain that the life I once accepted is now suffocating me, that the small awakenings I felt hint at something more meaningful. But every sentence only deepens the chasm between us. As the argument leaves an echoing bitterness in the stillness of our home, I retreat to a quiet corner. I'm left with a piercing realization. This confrontation is not merely about tonight's harsh words. It's a sign that the transformation stirring inside me is unraveling the very fabric of our once secure life. And as I sit in the cold, lonely quiet, I understand that the path to living my truth might very well dismantle everything I thought was unchangeable. In the days that followed my explosive confrontation at home, I found myself living two parallel lives. By daylight, I navigated the mundane routine of work and suburban obligations, but by night, I slipped into a world of clandestine rendezvous with Dylan. A world that felt electrifying and dangerous all at once. One cool evening, I met Dylan at a quaint cafe nestled along the edge of the lake. The place was nearly empty, save for the soft murmur of a few late-night patrons and the gentle lapping of water against the dock. We sat in a secluded booth, the flickering candlelight casting shadows that danced on our faces. "I never imagined we'd end up here," Dylan whispered, his tone half in awe, half in regret. His eyes, intense and searching, locked with mine as he continued, "There's something about tonight, like we're both finally daring to be honest with ourselves." His words, raw and sincere, stirred a powerful mix of liberation and guilt within me. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, spanning the breadth of our past dreams and present realities. We spoke about the pain of living a life that no longer felt authentic, about the disillusionment of following a path set long ago by others' expectations. In those moments, every secret shared felt like a small rebellion against a world that demanded conformity. "I've been suffocating in a life that wasn't mine," I confessed, my voice trembling slightly as the truth of my inner turmoil emerged. Dylan's response was a soft nod, a silent understanding that bridged the gap between our disparate lives. Not long after, on a rain-soaked night beneath the shelter of an old pier, the tension between us reached its climax. The rhythmic drumming of the rain and the hushed whispers of the wind provided a backdrop for a kiss that was as fierce as it was tender. It wasn't merely the collision of lips, it was a merging of two wounded souls daring to feel again. In that passionate embrace, I tasted both freedom and the fear of inevitable consequences. For a brief, suspended moment, the world around us faded away, leaving only the electric pulse of our shared desire. Yet, the thrill of these secret meetings was tinged with a bitter aftertaste. Each encounter left me grappling with the stark contrast between the vibrant, liberating moments with Dylan and the cold, stifling reality waiting at home. I found myself lost in thought during mundane tasks, haunted by images of our clandestine rendezvous and the life I was slowly dismantling. At times, I would freeze mid-conversation with a coworker, my mind drifting to that rain-drenched night and the realization that I was caught between the allure of newfound passion and the suffocating grip of a double life. Every stolen moment with Dylan deepened the intensity of my internal conflict. I questioned whether these secret meetings were reviving a forgotten piece of me or if I was merely trading one set of chains for another. As the city slept, I lay awake in bed, heart pounding with a mixture of exhilaration and dread, torn between the promise of a life reimagined and the haunting possibility of irreversible loss. Returning home earlier than usual, I hoped for a quiet moment to gather my thoughts before the inevitable storm. Instead, I was met with a scene that shattered the fragile balance I'd been desperately trying to maintain. The house was unusually silent, the stillness broken only by a low, urgent murmur coming from James's study. I stood in the dim corridor, heart pounding, as I strained to listen. What I heard that night would etch itself into my memory forever. Inside, my husband's voice was a mix of hushed excitement and cold determination. I caught fragments of his conversation, snatches of words that I never thought I'd hear. The name Rebecca sliced through the quiet, repeated with a careless intimacy that left no room for doubt. "I can't wait to see her," James murmured, his tone betraying both longing and a disturbing lack of remorse. Each utterance of that name felt like a deliberate betrayal, echoing against the walls of my heart. In that moment, the weight of his infidelity crashed over me like a tidal wave, amplifying the inner guilt I'd been battling over my own secret transgressions. The shock plunged me into a chaotic swirl of emotions: anger, sorrow, and a profound sense of betrayal that cut deeper than I ever imagined. I retreated silently, my mind reeling from the realization that while I had been spiraling in my own world of deceit, James had been carving out his escape with another. The irony was brutal. We were both entangled in webs of lies, feeding off each other's hidden desires. That night, as I sat alone in the darkness, every beat of my heart reminded me of the dual betrayal, and I was left questioning how we had both strayed so far from the life we once promised to build together. Later, under the harsh glare of our kitchen's fluorescent light, the tension exploded into a confrontation that neither of us could avoid. James walked in as if unaware of the storm brewing beneath my calm facade. "We need to talk," I said, my voice unsteady yet resolute. The ensuing conversation was raw and relentless, a barrage of accusations, shattered confessions, and bitter regrets. Every word exchanged felt like a blow, chipping away at the remnants of trust and love that had once defined us. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he pleaded, his voice wavering, but his eyes betrayed a cold acceptance of the inevitable collapse. In that stark, unforgiving moment, it became painfully clear. Our mutual betrayals had not only dismantled our shared dreams, they had also exposed the fragile nature of the love we once took for granted. That Friday evening, I found myself at a swanky corporate event in downtown Chicago, forced to wear a smile that felt as fake as the designer suit draped over my shoulders. The venue buzzed with shallow laughter and rehearsed pleasantries, a stark contrast to the raw emotions that churned inside me. As I moved through clusters of colleagues, I couldn't help but notice the hollow glances and guarded nods, each person playing a role, concealing their true selves behind layers of politeness and pretense. Every handshake and toast reminded me that beneath the glittering surface of success lay a maze of dishonesty and selfish ambition. Later that night, away from the glare of corporate power, I met up with my best friend Sophie at a quiet, dimly lit lounge. In a corner booth, with only the soft hum of indie music as our backdrop, I finally let down the mask. "I'm tired, Sophie," I confessed in a low, trembling voice. "Everywhere I turn, it's the same double standards, everyone pretending to be something they're not. It's like we're trapped in this never-ending play, forced to wear masks that hide our true pain." Sophie's eyes, warm and understanding, met mine as she leaned in. "I know exactly what you mean," she said quietly. "Remember when we used to dream about living honestly, about showing the world who we really were? Now, it feels like sincerity is the biggest risk we can take." Our conversation spiraled into a cathartic outpouring, a moment of raw vulnerability that stripped away the polished facades we'd built over the years. Later, on a whim, I wandered into an impromptu theater evening held at a converted warehouse. Strangers gathered, sharing stories that were as gritty and unfiltered as life itself. I listened intently as one by one, people recounted personal tragedies, unspoken regrets, and small rebellions against the expectations that had long since suffocated them. Each tale was a mirror reflecting the hidden depths of human suffering, and the fierce courage it takes to embrace one's truth. In the dim light of the makeshift stage, I felt the weight of every secret and the liberating power of honesty. The raw intensity of these narratives stirred something deep within me. A recognition that authenticity, however painful, was the only path out of the labyrinth of deceit. That night, amid the interplay of confessions and half-smiles, I realized that change is born from the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. I understood that the masks we wear only serve to imprison us, while vulnerability offers a gateway to liberation. Even if the truth wounds, it is far more honest than the lies we live by. As I stepped back into the cool Chicago night, a resolute determination took hold. I would no longer hide behind forced smiles and empty conversations. I was ready to tear down the facades, even if it meant exposing the raw, aching reality of my soul. After the storm of arguments and bitter confessions, something in me shifted. The wreckage of that fateful night with James left me raw, exposed, yet undeniably determined to reclaim who I once was, or perhaps, to become someone entirely new. The weight of betrayal and the suffocating constraints of a life half-lived spurred me into action. I made a decision that felt both radical and liberating. I would break free from the chains of my past. The next day, still trembling with the residue of emotional upheaval, I enrolled in a modern dance class at a modest studio tucked away in the Vicar Park district. The space was far removed from the sterile routines of my old life. A sanctuary where music pulsed through the air and every movement was a declaration of freedom. The moment I stepped inside, I was greeted by an explosion of creativity. Dancers moving with raw passion and trainers encouraging us to trust our instincts. Among them was Jake, a charismatic instructor whose eyes sparkled with both warmth and a hint of mischief. "Dance isn't just about steps," he said during our first session, his voice soft yet commanding. "It's about unburdening your soul and letting every beat tell your story." His words resonated with a deep truth, and I felt the stirrings of hope as I allowed my body to express the turmoil and dreams that had long been suppressed. Each session became a transformative ritual, a space where the past and present collided in a dance of self-discovery. The choreography was challenging, pushing me to confront muscles I never knew existed, both physically and emotionally. With every practiced routine, I shed layers of self-doubt and the lingering shadows of regret. I started keeping a detailed journal, meticulously recording each movement, every fleeting thought, and the electrifying conversations that followed class. These entries soon filled pages with raw observations and reflections, a testament to the inner metamorphosis I was undergoing. I began to see that the painful encounters with Dylan and James weren't isolated moments of misfortune. They were necessary catalysts that forced me to question the very fabric of my existence. The harsh truths, the shattered illusions, and the unspoken dreams were all fragments of a larger puzzle. A puzzle that I was now determined to piece together. Through dance, I discovered that vulnerability was not a weakness but a doorway to authenticity. A chance to reconcile my past with the promise of tomorrow. In the dim light of the studio, surrounded by fellow seekers of freedom, I realized that reclaiming my identity meant embracing every scar and every smile along the way. The chains of the past were beginning to crumble beneath the steady rhythm of my new life. A life defined not by old betrayals, but by the courage to dance in the light of truth. Under the dark canopy of a stormy night, I found myself drawn to an abandoned cafe on the edge of the city, a relic of forgotten dreams with a faded neon sign that sputtered in the rain. The space felt suspended in time, every creak of the old wooden floor and every drip of water from the leaky roof echoing the turmoil inside me. I stepped through the door, my heart pounding in anticipation and dread alike, knowing that tonight held a reckoning I could no longer postpone. Inside, the sparse lighting cast long shadows that danced across chipped walls and worn furniture. There, almost as if emerging from the gloom, stood Dylan. His presence was magnetic, his eyes, dark and earnest, reflecting both regret and a fierce longing for redemption. Without a word, our gazes locked, and the tension between us ignited instantly. "I couldn't stay away," he whispered, his voice rough with unshed emotion. In that charged moment, we closed the distance between us, our lips meeting in a kiss that was as desperate as it was liberating. The kiss carried the weight of years spent in silence, a silent confession of love and rebellion that I had guarded so carefully. Yet as our passions surged, so did the bitter sting of reality. That kiss, so full of life and raw emotion, was not without consequence. It was a moment of truth that shattered any remnants of safety I once clung to. I could feel the pulse of betrayal racing through my veins, a betrayal not only of the promises I'd made to James but also of the fragile trust that had held our crumbling life together. The intense intimacy of that stolen kiss marked a point of no return, turning a private act of liberation into a public declaration of defiance. Later, in the cold drizzle outside, I sought out James under the dim glow of a street lamp. Our confrontation was inevitable. Standing face to face in the rain, our words exploded into an emotional duel. "How could you do this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of fury and sorrow. Every pause in our exchange was a silent reminder of the irreversible breach between us. In that painful dialogue, it became starkly clear. My embrace with Dylan was not just an expression of rekindled passion. It was a profound betrayal that had severed the last fragile bond of our shared past. In that turbulent night, passion and pain collided, leaving behind a chasm of broken trust that would forever alter the course of our lives. The day after that fateful night, the reverberations of our choices were impossible to ignore. As I stepped into the morning light of Chicago, it was clear that nothing would ever be the same. At work, whispers followed me down sterile hallways, and colleagues exchanged furtive glances when I passed. Even the simplest greetings felt heavy with unspoken judgment. Outside the office, friends who once laughed easily now wore looks of sympathy mixed with disapproval. And at home, the silence was deafening. Ethan, my innocent son, eyed me with quiet confusion. his questions unasked but his gaze pleading for an explanation as to why the warmth had vanished from our living room. Later that afternoon, while wandering the busy streets, I unexpectedly bumped into James. Standing there in the midst of the chaotic city noise. His eyes locked onto mine, a silent storm of condemnation and sorrow. "Emily," he said in a tone that was both bitter and resigned, "you really think you can just erase everything with one kiss?" His words, laden with the pain of our fractured past, struck me harder than any accusation. We traded a few terse remarks, each sentence a jagged reminder of our lost connection. Every word exchanged felt like a test, our feelings stretched thin, caught between a desperate need for resolution and the impossibility of reconciliation. Determined to find some semblance of solace, I sought out Dylan later that evening. We met in a quiet corner of a nearly empty diner, where the low hum of conversation provided a fragile cover for our raw vulnerability. But even in Dylan's familiar presence, tension simmered beneath the surface. "Emily," he began cautiously, "I thought our time together meant more than just a temporary escape from the past." His voice trembled with regret and the realization that our stolen moments could never restore what had been broken. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a while, each of us acutely aware that no amount of clandestine meetings or whispered confessions could undo the damage already inflicted. In that heavy atmosphere, the truth settled in. None of us, not James with his unhealed wounds, not I with my desperate longing for freedom, nor even the allure of our secret rendezvous, could bring back the sincerity and warmth we once knew. Our lives were now a labyrinth of fractured promises and half-truths. As the weight of our collective choices pressed down on us, it became clear that change demanded a reckoning. The price was steep, and the illusions we had clung to were shattering around us. In that stark moment of clarity, I realized that the only way forward was to confront the truth head-on, however painful it might be. Standing alone in a bare room, I faced the full-length mirror that seen every secret of my life. The reflection before me is no longer the woman who clung to half-truths and masked smiles. Instead, it's someone who's endured betrayals, shattered promises, and countless nights wrestling with her own soul. As I traced the contours of my face with trembling fingertips, I realized that I can't continue living in a web of lies and double standards. I decide, in that silent, charged moment, that it's time to start anew, even if that means walking a lonely path. Later that morning, I find myself sitting in the quiet corner of our living room where James waits, his eyes heavy with a mix of regret and desperate hope. "Emily, can we talk?" he pleads, his voice soft yet strained with the weight of our shared past. I meet his gaze with a resolve that surprises even me. "James," I say, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside, "I can't pretend anymore. Our life, our love, it's crumbled under endless lies and betrayals. The person I used to be is gone, swallowed by hypocrisy and fear." His eyes flicker with sorrow as I continue. "I'm choosing to live my truth now, even if that means letting go of everything we once knew." In that painful final conversation, I know our shared history has reached its inevitable end. A farewell that paves the way for something real, however uncertain it might be. Afterward, I step out into the cool Chicago evening, the city lights and familiar hum of urban life offering a strange kind of comfort. I make my way to a quiet, dimly lit cafe on the edge of town. A place that's come to symbolize both refuge and renewal. There, waiting in the soft glow of a street lamp, is Dylan. His eyes, ever so earnest and full of unspoken understanding, meet mine as if he already knows the magnitude of the moment. "Emily," he begins gently, "are you really ready for this?" I nod, feeling a rush of both fear and liberation. "I'm ready, Dylan. I'm choosing to live honestly, to build something real from the ruins of my past." Without further words, we draw together. Our kiss is not a desperate escape but a deliberate act of rebirth, a promise sealed in the soft, cool air of that transformative night. In that final decisive kiss, every regret, every painful lesson, every hidden hope converges into a single moment of clarity. It symbolizes my commitment to embrace truth, vulnerability, and the uncharted possibility of a future that belongs solely to me. As I walk away from the cafe, I carry with me a deep, unwavering promise. To be honest, brave and true, regardless of how echoing the past might be. The illusions have fallen away, leaving only the raw, unfiltered truth of who I am, and who I aspire to become.